You're listening to Mind, Body, Home with your host, Sara Ann. Hello. Welcome to the Mind, Body, Home podcast. Today, we are going to be talking about the wood dragon of 2024. I personally do not do Chinese astrology, but I thought it would be a good idea to at least pay a little homage to the culture and the energy that surrounds this time, this Lunar New Year, to give you a little insight into the energy that is expected this year. We are leaving behind the energy of the water rabbit. We're actually still in that phase now. The dragon doesn't start to sort of come into play until February 4th. And then in the Chinese culture, there is a celebration on the 10th, and that is denoted as Chinese New Year or the Lunar New Year. And we've been sort of leading up to this in the past few episodes. My goal at the beginning of this year was to get you excited about this new year. And so we started with making very clear intentions and how we want to show up in this next year. And what are some things that maybe are blocking us? How can we push through them? How to set up our home to sort of welcome in this new energy, because the wood dragon, and we'll get into it in a little bit, is about that. It is all about seeing a transformation and rising above to sort of push us forward and not limit ourselves, to really go out for what it is that we want to go for. And we have that support this year with the wood dragon. So I'll start by saying that the Chinese astrology system is extremely complicated. I know probably a fraction of what there is to potentially know. But I am going to do my best to sort of break it down in a way that is very easily understood, because again, I'm not here to really forecast anything specific to anyone listening, because that would be impossible. There are 12 zodiac signs. There are 5 elements. All of that is taken into consideration based off your birth year, which is most known to most of us. For example, if you go to a Chinese restaurant and you sit down and you see the 12 zodiac signs and it says, find your year of birth. And then you're like, oh, I'm an ox, I'm a dog, I'm a dragon, right? And it's fun to read and it's fun to play, but there is so much more that is involved in a true zodiac forecast, or known as Batzi, which is the Chinese astrology system. So as I said, it's very complex. It would be impossible to really break it all down in one episode. But what I can do is break down the energy to see how that might align with some of the intentions that you're setting this year, or goals that you have. Is this a year that those goals can be supported? Or should you maybe pull back on something? Only you can tell. So I really want you to sort of take this conversation with a grain of salt and apply it to your life in a way that resonates with you. Some of you might find a really direct connection to this information, and then some of you might need to take some time and reflect to see how this can relate to your year ahead, again, with those intentions that we set. And if you want to listen to that episode, that was a few weeks ago on setting intentions. We very specifically set intentions for mind, body, home, or I also mentioned setting ones for health, wealth, and success. So let's get into it. Lunar New Year, otherwise known as the Chinese New Year, it is celebrated by millions and millions all around the world. It falls on the second new moon of 2024, so it can fluctuate from year to year. Unlike the solar new year, where we're celebrating the calendar change, the lunar new year is celebrating the return of spring. So that is truly what is being celebrated here because we're leaving behind the water element of winter and entering the wood element of spring. It's about new beginnings, growth. The seeds that are planted are starting to sprout. So it's emergence. So that is sort of overall the energy at play. And I sort of started alluding to this, but just like in Western astrology, the Chinese zodiac is a system of 12 animals, 5 elements, different cycles. And so most of us know our Chinese zodiac based on the year of our birth, but there's actually an animal and an element associated to not only the year, but the month you were born, the date you were born, and the hour you were born. So just like in Western astrology, and you have those 3 big placements, right? Most of us know our sun sign, but there's also the moon sign and the ascendant sign or the rising sign. So all of these describe different parts of you, right? And together they form a picture of what your personality actually is. There's sort of this external and internal. And when you look at the Chinese zodiac, you can forecast a lot of predictions based on animal and your element at different stages in your life. And you can really utilize that information to make decisions in life. Big decisions like getting married, buying a house, starting a business, closing a business, signing a lease. All of these decisions can really be forecasted. So again, I want to give you some insight into it as best as I can. And if you have big life choices coming up in the next year, then maybe getting your zodiac forecast might be a good idea for you if this really is resonating and you feel called to. And if you do, feel free to reach out and I can get you set up with the right person that can offer that to you. I have access to consultants all over the world. So, as I mentioned, the energy of the year is distinguished by a zodiac animal and an element. And so we are experiencing the wood dragon. So let's start with the wood element. So the words that come to mind for me when I think of wood is action, growth, momentum, new beginnings, right? All of those spring energies where we want to get outside, especially if we're in the Northern Hemisphere. We're emerging from our long winter's nap. And I have to say, being a water rabbit year last year, it did feel like we were in that long winter's nap all year long, right? If maybe some of you were experiencing a lot of changes and things kind of coming to a close, whether that's relationships or careers or past identities of self, which I think is huge for so many people. So many people are sort of shedding that skin of who they always thought they were, but never felt fully comfortable in their own skin. And so, just like in Eastern and Western cosmology, I think you're seeing a lot of things that are talking about transformation. We are in a time of change. And so, the energy of wood really supports all of that. In Western astrology, we're seeing Pluto moving into Aquarius. So, there's going to be a lot of transformation and personal growth, really pushing us to emerge. I get this sense of like emergence, sort of like the butterfly coming out of the cocoon. Like the water rabbit kept us in the cocoon for so long, and we're like, we've got to wing out, right? If you've ever watched that actually happen, I've actually had the pleasure to watch that a few times in my life. You know, the wing is sort of out. And I feel like that's where we're at. We're sort of on this verge of metamorphosis. Like we have a lot of awareness around the things that aren't working for us anymore. And we're ready to sort of break free from that part of ourselves. I just feel like that butterfly transformation is so accurate. And I feel like wood is now going to kind of pop that other wing out, so to speak. So there's this huge energy around transformation and coming out and really going for it, like not coming out of the cocoon and just falling on the ground and being afraid to fly, but really like emerging. And when I think of emergence, like I'm free, right? And I think if we can honor that energy, then we really can soar. So I'm curious how that feels for you, and I'd love to have a conversation about it. So please feel free to email me or send me a message on Instagram or Facebook. So let's now talk a little bit about the dragon. The dragon represents rising yang energy. So what does that mean? Yang energy is out there, it's extroverted, we're going for it, it's bright, it's shining, where yin is sort of like inward and quiet and colder. This rising yang energy is like growing and expanding. That's the way I feel. I feel expansion, not just transformation, but transformation in a way that really fuels expansion. It wants us to really go for it. So the words that I think of are strength, authenticity, personal power. And it's interesting because you're seeing these words come up in so many different communities, especially in the spiritual world, but also the self development world. Even just talking about, for example, building a business, showing up and being really authentic and connecting with clients and each other in a way that is just honest and putting vulnerability and shame to the wayside. Like we're done playing that game. And so, in order to show up in our authentic and personal power, we really do need to sort of be strong and lead with the heart, because I don't think there's anything more authentic than our heart, that thing that connects, not our physical heart, but like that energy of heart that connects us to the divine source of creation, right? So, heart centered work, having strength, authenticity, personal power, these are all characteristics that really make up the energy of the dragon. So, again, the dragon emerges on February 4th, and then there's a whole celebration that begins on the 10th as we welcome that energy in. In Chinese shamanism, the dragon is looked at as this very auspicious, meaning favorable, prosperous, or very fortunate, as opposed to in a Western culture where, they're almost these destructive creatures, these fire breathing, scary dragons. And so we're talking more about the latter, where a dragon it is powerful, it is strong, and it has the ability to overcome, I feel like is a good word too. It's like that's a word I think of when we need to have that strength to overcome obstacles in our life. So just like the year itself carries an elemental energy, so does each zodiac animal. They also relate to a particular element, sometimes a couple, such as the dragon, who relates to the earth and wood element. So I told you this was a very complex system, y'all. I hope I'm conveying this information in a way that is making sense for you. So dragons favor earth element, and earth really emphasizes community. And I think that the transformation we are engaged in, I would say globally, is that a lot of us are kind of creating communities and sort of banding together to bring this transformation that we're all hoping to see. Even me, just on a quite smaller scale, I'm looking for other ways in my business to sort of collaborate with others to drive business and do it from, again, that heart centered place. Some of those old hustling, pounding the pavement on social media and, sending out a million emails and building lists and what's your analytics, like all of that is important in business. Don't get me wrong, but I don't think that there needs to be so much emphasis on that. I really do believe there are other ways to create community. And I think that that's through collaboration. So I have been kind of working out in my own mind, how can I collaborate with others? How can I network with other people in my community in a way that drives not just business, but drives the support that people are seeking. How can I reach them through other means? And I think that the dragon, for me at least, can really support that. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that sort of unfolds for myself. And dragon also connects with the wood element, which is the element of the year. Um, it's represented by the color green. Again, all about growth, taking action, setting things in motion, building momentum. I really think that's what the energy is all about. So the green dragon really encourages us to take action inspired by that wood energy, but making your actions and your decisions very mindfully and incorporate some of that earth element as well. In fact, this was one of my intentions for the year in our house buying process, is to take a more mindful approach. Emphasis is on taking action, but also including some of that earth element of being mindful and thoughtful, and maybe just taking pause before taking that action, not to skip that. So, if there are a lot of big life decisions coming up for you in 2024, I think this is probably the biggest thing to remain aware of is take mindful action and really pause before signing on any dotted lines and committing to anything that is not in alignment with some of the intentions and goals that you have set for yourself. So you still have a few weeks before the Lunar New Year or Chinese New Year. Again, our dragons are emerging on February 4th. So really utilize this time. Go back and listen to the last few episodes that I recorded where I talk about intention setting, really gaining clarity through the way you move through your home, cleaning and clearing your home, really welcoming in this new energy because, again, this sense of change, this sense of metamorphosis is calling us to not just emerge, but to really grow and expand. And we have the dragon's support. So if there's anything on your heart that you know you need to move past, change, grow, transform, this is the time, this is your year to really harness that energy and to help propel you because it is not an easy task to make significant, and these are significant changes in our life. And I think that if you find the alignment with yourself and make those changes by following your intuition, leading with that, making decisions from that, really trusting yourself, showing up in your truth or your authenticity, these are going to be the ways in which you'll see the prosperous dragon, right? The dragon can bring that. It brings abundance and prosperity and wealth and health and success. But I don't think that we're going to see the gifts of the dragon unless we decide to transform, show up authentically, and in our own power. So that is my attempt at giving you the 2024 Year of the Dragon annual assessment. I hope I was clear and concise. Take this time this week and next week to declutter, zhuzh up your front door, focus on your health center, focus on your wealth corner. And if you need a refresher on the energetic map of your home, I will go ahead and provide a link to that in the show notes so that you can download a copy of your own Bagua map to make sure you're setting yourself up and your home so that you can reap the benefits of the dragon. And if you haven't already, make sure to check out the items in the shop. We are still in the water phase for just a few weeks, so make sure you check out the water elements there. There are some crystals, malas, journals, insight decks, all there for you to check out and support you at home. If you're interested in getting a Mind Body Home alignment session, please reach out to me. There's a contact form on my website. The link to that is in the show notes. The beginning of the year is such a wonderful time to get things in place, taking those intentions that you're setting for yourself. If you know you need support and accountability, I am here to guide you. So please utilize that link. Reach out to me. I would love to work with you. Until next week, I'm sending you so much love and gratitude. Thank you so much for listening. This episode is brought to you by Jade Scott Design. Jade Scott Design houses a collection of services, products, and content that are aimed to support mind, body, and home. If you're interested in exploring your relationship to home on a deeper level, be sure to check out our interior decorating and feng shui services, along with our home decor line, Shop Elemental. All of this and information on the Mind Body Home podcast can be found at the link in the show notes at jadescottdesign.com.